adhered to every royal protocol, acting as a spiritual anchor and a silent reminder whenever her brothers grew lax in front of the cameras. The American and British public adored her precisely for this perfection, her iron discipline, and the aura of a future leader. Yet that very perfect in her life. Behind the firmly closed bedroom doors, the young princess could no longer maintain her usual self-control. She trembled, had now become her most vulnerable target as her physical body collapsed into total exhaustion. The unyielding fever pushed Charlotte into rare moments of weakness and delirium, something that had never happened before, and deflect blame onto subordinates. The ultimate determination and power of a man protecting his family and his little daughter completely crushed and pulverized the long-held cunning of the malicious woman. "You have no escape routes left, Camilla. You brutally crossed my absolute final line the moment your silver hard drive lay between them like a sealed death sentence for the calculating royal life of the Queen." William's eyes locked onto Camilla, denying her any opportunity to escape personal responsibility, or slamming both hands onto the wooden desk, leaning his body in until he was inches away from his stepmother's terrified, distorted face. The mountain of ironclad evidence and the... At Kensington Palace, the air grew terrifyingly cold as Prince William's fury reached its absolute peak. He stood paralyzed beside his daughter's sickbed, his hands clenched into fists so tightly that the veins stood out starkly against his arms. On his glowing tablet, the room at Buckingham Palace, leisurely sipping her tea, watching with immense satisfaction as the Wales branch reeled from the filthy assault, left with no viable way to explain the truth to the public. By underground forces directed by her stepmother. Skeptical comments and malicious inquiries flooded the internet, demanding her removal from future royal events to avoid a negative influence. Camilla sat in her luxurious smile on the Queen's face suddenly froze. Her complexion shifted from arrogant to deathly pale, stripped of all color, and her hands adorned with priceless rings began to tremble violently under the punishing glare of the fury. Off the dirty media network in the U.S. bore the direct handwritten signatures of approval from the private hidden funds controlled by Camilla. Facing this mountain of irrefutable ironclad evidence, the smog contained within were the raw metadata of the defamatory videos, proving they were initiated and edited within Camilla's own network storage system at Buckingham, before being heavily encrypted and maliciously planted into Kate's network address for the sole purpose of framing her. More critically, the money trails paying off. With us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it. The 11-year-old girl wore an elegant dress, fully regaining her natural real-life poise and maturity. She smiled brightly, waving to the crowd of fans who were cheering in victory below. Good had triumphed completely through wit, resilience, and love, while evil was unmasked, stripped of everything, and permanent. Of the Wales family once again brought joy to millions of readers across the world. Princess Charlotte, having fully recovered from her severe high fever, stood proudly and confidently on the balcony of Kensington Palace alongside her parent, buried in the shame of the remote countryside. Having overcome a dirty smear campaign targeting her mental state at just 11 years old, will Charlotte's real-life metal and iron discipline help her grow even stronger, transforming her into the ultimate weapon to protect the Wales branch in the future? Share your thoughts. All bore the private cryptographic ciphers of the Queen herself. All the digital evidence from the Buckingham IP access logs and the printouts of the transaction histories from the hidden funds to the unedited original raw videos was fully compiled. Funds amounting to hundreds of thousands of pounds used to run the campaign to destroy a child had been drawn directly from hidden slush funds and private accounts under Camilla's sole ownership. The names of the front companies and the expenditure approval orders advised in publishing the defamatory articles against Charlotte. After hours of continuously tracking complex money transfers, disguised as anonymous donations, they unmasked a horrifying truth. The entirety of the funds surrounding his 3 children and constructing an absolute protective wall to safeguard the future of the Wales branch from the dark conspiracies of the palace. Though he had secured a brilliant victory and protected his family, his stepmother's ruthless betrayal left a deep, unhealable rift within the royal family, and honor were completely restored before the eyes of all. Prince William returned to Kensington Palace immediately, tightening the entirety of the information security systems, locking down all data streams, casting a Cold War atmosphere over the entire monarchy. Weeks later, when the media storm was completely extinguished and the malicious rumors had vanished, a radiant image twisting her usual maturity into a dangerous psychiatric pathology, she would successfully sow doubt in the public's mind about the competence of the entire next generation of successors. Camilla took physical force, for she understood that in this era, weaponizing public opinion and utilizing the dirty knives of the media was the cruelest way to destroy a person's honor. The campaign to ruin Princess Charlotte officially began at that ruthless moment. Just a few days after Camilla's pointed turned and walked away, the soft click of her heels echoing down the long corridor like a death knell for the child's peace. She did not need to resort to posing as medical experts, overlaying the videos with analytical hypotheses about behavioral control disorders, extreme psychological pressure, and a mind on the brink of total collapse. They broadcast to the public that Charlotte's fear. The natural blinks and lip pursing of an 11-year-old child were repeatedly magnified through a lens of pure malice. Even more dangerously, Camilla's network hired artificial intelligence voices. Usual seriousness was not discipline, but rather the manifestation of a severely overworked child, a psychiatric risk cracking under the unbearable pressure of a potential successor. This dirty campaign quickly triggered a wave of extreme panic and outrage. His family wanted to keep guarded at all costs. Princess Charlotte, the 11-year-old girl who was the pride of the entire branch, lay motionless on a large bed. A violent, unrelenting high fever that had lasted for days and nights had completely stripped the young princess of her vitality. The mask is publicly ripped away. Behind the thick, cold stone walls of Kensington Palace, the atmosphere was so suffocating it could choke anyone who entered. Hidden within was a heartbreaking secret that the whale's, her once rosy, radiant skin, had turned as pale as paper. Her dry lips were slightly chapped, and her usually sharp eyes remained shut under the heavy weight of her severe illness. Charlotte had long been world famous for a poise and confidence that far exceeded her years. She was the one who, strictly trembling and delirious during a mysterious severe illness, have been widely leaked intentionally, twisting her usual maturity into signs of a behavioral disorder and extreme psychological. A heartbreaking medical diagnosis regarding Princess Charlotte's psychological state has just been revealed, plunging the British palace into a fierce media earthquake. Melancholic videos of the 11-year-old trembling.
She was a little apprehensive, but she has a reputation for being pretty feisty, very confident. Prince George may be the eldest child, but I think it's Charlotte who calls the shots and has everyone running rings around her.
Past Charlotte's bedroom, she paused slightly by the half-ajar door. Through the narrow gap, Camilla peered inside. The sharp, cold eyes of the most powerful woman in the palace, lined with wrinkles of calculation, did not flicker with a single shred of empathy or grandmotherly love. Most isolated and vulnerable, that a ruthless shadow quietly appeared in the corridors of Kensington Palace. Queen Camilla, using the guise of a casual social visit to blind the public, took it upon herself to step into the private quarters of the Wales family. As she pulled continuously, her small hands unconsciously grasping at the air, as if trying to hold on to something, while her mouth muttered fragmented, meaningless sentences in a semi-conscious state. It was during this exact moment when the 11-year-old child was at her weakest point, when the roster of royal family members participating in the early year public duties was released, and Charlotte's name was entirely missing. Charlotte's seclusion in her bedroom to treat her high fever accidentally aligned perfectly with the malicious rumors of the dirty media leading the American public to firmly believe that the young prince among the public. Sensational headlines saturated the tabloids. The heartbreaking truth about Princess Charlotte. Secret diagnosis leaked from the palace. The situation reached a boiling point. Princess had indeed been isolated due to severe psychological instability. The 11-year-old child lying on her sickbed was completely cut off, her honor and innocence mercilessly trampled. This was no mere coincidence or standard media mishap. This was a systematic execution campaign orchestrated by someone who knew every nook and cranny of the palace and possessed the financial power to manipulate underground networks. Driven to the brink, a father's wrath turned William into a cold, ruthless, viciously edited videos and thousands of malicious comments targeting Charlotte flashed like a dark insult. Looking at his only daughter, who despite still being exhausted from the violent fever, was sobbing uncontrollably over the cruel slander from the outside world, his fatherly heart was utterly shattered. The torment of his 11-year-old child transformed into a blazing fire of hatred deep within the Prince of Wales. William understood perfectly well that peeling back the encrypted security layers of the servers that had distributed the videos defaming Princess Charlotte. Although the perpetrators of this filthy campaign had been exceptionally cunning, using a phantom overseas server to wipe any criminal trace, their haste to exploit the 11-year-old child's severe illness caused them to make a fatal mistake. They had left a tiny technical loophole within the remote-controlled data packets. William's tech team successfully intercepted and analyzed the metadata of the originally uploaded clips. Upon reversing the data flow and breaching the anonymous firewalls, the royal experts froze in unison as the computer monitors displayed the exact geographic coordinates of the IP address that had issued the video editing commands. The location was nowhere foreign. It traced directly back. Charlotte had acted with immense maturity, subtly bowing her head and reminding her older brother Prince George to observe protocol as the coffin passed by. It had once been a symbol of her flawless upbringing, but under the malicious manipulation of this covert campaign, the footage was horrifyingly distorted. They intentionally slowed down the clip and darkened the surrounding colors to engineer a bleak, heavy, and mentally exhausting atmosphere. Specifically targeted the poignant moment the young princess attended the funeral of the late Queen Elizabeth II in 2022. At that historically sorrowful event, for William to march out of Kensington Palace and head straight to Buckingham Palace for a historic confrontation had officially arrived. The historic face-to-face showdown between the two greatest powers within the royal family unfolded inside Queen Camilla's isolated private office at Buckingham Palace. It was organized flawlessly and locked securely inside a thick digital evidence dossier bound in an elegant silver cover. Holding the dossier in his hands, William felt the sheer weight of the weapon that would allow him to protect his daughter and punish the perpetrator. Every shred of evidence regarding the vile, immoral crimes of his ruthless stepmother was now held firmly in the hands of a father consumed by ultimate fury. The moment, daughter's reputation, just to court attention from the American public. Camilla believed this fatal blow would cause the internal structure of the Wales family to tear itself apart. Before her, a man she believed had walked straight into her trap. Yet William's expression remained utterly frozen, completely unmoved by his stepmother's malicious psychological warfare. Mutual suspicion, and that William would completely collapse before this game of turning black into white. She looked at William with artificial pity, leaning back into her chair, waiting to hear helpless explanations or panic from the man completely stripped of any privilege to appear before the public. She was escorted out of London, immediately sent into permanent exile in the remote countryside of Wiltshire, under the strict guard of loyalists personally planted at the door of Buckingham Palace beneath the silence of the night. Camilla was forced to pack her personal belongings in haste and utter humiliation. There were no royal guards to see her off, no red carpets, no media flashes. She was completed by William. She was stripped forever of the palace glamour, destined to live out her remaining days in the absolute isolation and estrangement of the royal clan. The dirty campaign concluded with a clear, devastating closure. The villain suffered a miserable fate, while a father's justice and image distortion targeting Princess Charlotte. The video editors serving Camilla's plot combed through Charlotte's entire archive of past footage. They visit a dirty media storm abruptly exploded across the internet, aimed squarely at middle-aged female readers in the US and the UK. This was a demographic that paid exceptionally close attention to the inner workings of the royal family, and they were also the most psychologically vulnerable to rumors involving children. Camilla's private office at Buckingham Palace silently pulled the strings, directing an underground network of media forces to launch a highly sophisticated and vicious campaign of video editing slap to the pride she had harbored for so long. That very night, the execution of her sentence, the total destruction of her honor and actual power, took place without a single shred of mercy or delay. A secret black car sat waiting at the back door, and a mountain of unshakable evidence. Queen Camilla realized she was completely empty-handed. All her countercards had been shattered. The hand that was so accustomed to signing royal privileges trembled violently as she picked up the ink pen. Under William's cold, strict, and unblinking supervision, Camilla was forced to put pen to paper, writing every line of a bitter handwritten apology. The humiliating confessions of her cruel actions and her vile jealousy toward her 11-year-old step-granddaughter were penned amidst the bitter, helpless tears of a defeated villain. Each stroke of the pen felt like a direct volcano on the verge of eruption, staring directly down at his stepmother. Camilla sat relaxed in a luxurious leather armchair, slowly setting her porcelain teacup down on the table. Faced with the sudden and murderous arrival of her stepson, the Queen showed. The space was tranquil, laced with the aroma of premium porcelain tea. But the moment Prince William strode through the oak doors, without any announcement or permission from the guards, the atmosphere instantly froze solid. William's gaze was as cold and ruthless as a naked blade, and each of his heavy steps, echoing against the floor, carried the absolute fury of a father whose young daughter had been framed and targeted while lying defenseless in a hospital bed. He marched straight to the desk, standing towering like a volcano. "You dared to touch Charlotte!" William growled each word, delivered with a cold, sharp, and ruthless precision that felt like ice. He had no need for courts laws or complicated administrative bodies. He was hand heavily on the desk, presenting Camilla with her sole option, allowing no room for negotiation or delay. She must either manually write a handwritten letter confessing to her utter cowardice in the smear campaign, weaponized the actual raw authority of the rightful heir to the throne to issue a devastating ultimatum, a psychological and practical punishment that would strip away all the wealth and glory Camilla had spent a lifetime of conspiracies to steal. William slammed back to Queen Camilla's private office inside Buckingham Palace. The villain had left her digital fingerprints right at the crime scene. However, William knew that with just an IP address, Camilla could easily blame a subordinate or our smear campaign, the financial transactions used to fund the underground media network. The experts began auditing bank accounts linked to the financing of the U.S. tabloids that argue that her system had been breached by bad actors. To deliver a definitive crushing blow that would prevent his stepmother from ever holding her head up again, he needed ironclad physical evidence that possessed absolute legal weight within the family dynamic. William immediately ordered his detectives to pivot the investigation, digging deep into the lifeblood of the entire and isolated internal investigation right within Kensington Palace. He ordered a total lockdown of the private quarters, changed all digital access codes, and commanded all regular entirely outside the control of Buckingham Palace. A secret operations center was set up overnight within the heavily fortified wine cellar of Kensington Palace. The glow from massive computer screens illuminated William's grim, expressionless face as he stood watching the technical team get to work. "I want to know exactly royal security staff to stay clear of his office." William refused any intervention from the palace establishment to completely eliminate the risk of external leaks. Instead, he secretly summoned a premier team of independent technology experts and digital detectives, individuals whose loyalty belonged strictly to him and who operated in hidden surface. Papers detailing transaction histories and raw server data scattered everywhere, covering Camilla's computer screen. This physical evidence was the ultimate finishing blow that William and his secret tech team had stayed awake all night to hunt down, stripping the villain of any opportunity to forge counter-evidence. William felt no need for lengthy arguments. He pointed his finger directly at the silver dossier, forcing Camilla to look at the reality of her crimes. He stepped directly to the edge of Camilla's desk and forcefully slammed the silver-covered digital evidence dossier, along with a silver hard drive, onto the antique fresh media trap, accusing the Wales family of abusing their power to cover up the truth. The decision was made with absolute decisiveness and cold resolve. William established a top-secret, entirely independent, and highly rational warrior. He knew he could not act hastily or leave any vulnerabilities. If he utilized the official palace security forces or requested investigations through standard procedures, Camilla's eyes and ears at Buckingham Palace would instantly sniff it out. The enemy would swiftly wipe away all traces, or worse, they would twist his investigation into a shameless, sickening excuse.